Want to have a good time for a good cause? Joey's Song brings together a group of artists that include rock and roll Hall of Famers, multiple Grammy winners, and top 40 hitmakers to Madison each January to help raise money in the fight against epilepsy. To date, $1.3 million has been raised with the help of these top artists playing for free. Over 4 days, January 8th through January 11th, Joey's Song's Freezing Man Festival will hold epic concerts for the cause. Find out more at joeysong.org. Today on CityCast Madison. It's the Friday News Roundup, and this week I'm joined by CityCast Madison's Haley Sperling and Rob Thomas. Today, we're taking a special look ahead at the top stories to watch in Madison for 2025. The forthcoming Madison Public Market and the Center for Black Excellence in Culture opening their doors. A spring election that includes an open seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court and every Madison Common Council seat. Plus, what does the future hold for the Universities of Wisconsin system amid budgetary calls for restructuring? It's Friday, January 3rd. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Welcome to the Friday News Roundup. And this week, we've got a special episode for y'all. With the new year ahead of us, we're taking stock of stories that we're going to be keeping an eye on in 2025. And joining me today is my wonderful teammates. Starting with the leader of this podcast, Haley Sperling. Hello.
Hello, Bianca. Happy 2025.
Yes, happy quarter century. So stoked.
We made it.
And of course, our newsletter editor, Rob Thomas. What's good?
Is this a musical episode of the podcast? Is that a new thing we're doing in 2025? Because I am all for it.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well,
at least for you, Bianca. Yeah.
Before we started recording, I was just singing Wicked the whole time. So that will definitely be part of 2025, I feel like, for sure. But certainly celebrations and new things, openings. I'm kicking us off with a couple of long-awaited openings. So I'll just go ahead and get started. The long-planned Madison Public Market is actually happening. Can't believe it. According to construction updates, the market is on track to open this July 1st. We know how construction works, so, we're not going to be too crazy if it ends up being August. But at this point, they're saying July 1st. That's the mark. And it's to be handed over this month to the Public Market Foundation, January 31st. So it's exciting stuff. And this is after at least 2 decades of planning, fits and starts, some unfulfilled hopes that until this year were unfulfilled, and they will be filled. So we're really excited about that. For those of you who are regular listeners around here, you might remember we spoke with the Madison Public Market Foundation Board President, Karen Crossley, about the vision in September of 2023. So if you want to check out that conversation for a deeper dive, definitely do. But in terms of the general picture for the market, it's going into a former City Fleet building. So this massive warehouse space over at 202 North First Street. It's kind of, the cross streets are East Johnson and kind of East Washington, not quite, but I kind of think of it in that sort of corridor where a bunch of developments are happening, Mint Mark, lots of things that you definitely see if you ever drive on East Wash in that area. The space is a 50,000 square foot space. I don't know, did either of you two make it to the open house that happened?
I didn't go to the open house, but I drive past it all the time because it's kind of in my area. So yeah, it's a really big space that has been just kind of sitting vacant for a long time. And there's been questions over what to do with it. And I'm excited that Public Market is actually happening.
I can't quite believe it because it has been literally 20 years.
Yeah.
And I remember several years ago, it seemed pretty much dead. And it's just kind of an amazing turnaround. I don't want to be like, oh, I'll believe it when I see it after all this time. But let's just say I'll be happy to see it.
Right. And I know that was the talk, like, okay, yeah, sure, it's happening. Sure. Like, yeah, they're coming back. But now you actually, if you want to see it to believe it, this is one of the most fun parts of the story for me is the website has construction process updates, and they're actually really cool. So thank you to the foundation for putting those up. So we do have a sense that it is indeed underway. Construction, the latest updates around that, it looks like the individual vendor market stalls are taking shape. Like, you can go see photos of this. The parking lot has been poured, landscaping is underway, and the exterior is close to finished. So you can see all these pictures online if you want to. I certainly did, and I'm really stoked about that. But I just wanted to give us a kind of a quick refresh of where we've been. So yeah, there was a public open house. Since that open house, they've since named a CEO, Keisha Harrison. She's been profiled in a few different outlets, and we'll definitely have to talk to her. It's on our list. But she's previously an executive director of the Indianapolis City Market. So she's done this kind of thing before. And I just saw, according to their website, they're also hiring 2 other big positions. So if they're not filled by now, it's on their website, but this is the chief operating officer and executive assistant to the CEO. So if this public good is exciting to you and you're on the hunt, tell them we sent you. An immediate referral. But yeah, there's a lot in process. You might have heard about what they're expecting in this space, but they've described, having an event space in the public market. They're looking to have around 30 permanent booths for vendors, space for temporary vendors and food carts, plus a commercial kitchen and a food incubator. So lots of space for supporting entrepreneurs. And from their website, it looks like there will be a strong focus on minority-owned businesses and getting affordable rent. And they also said that they're hoping to have access to 500,000 plus potential customers every year. So this is going to be a bustling space and a story to watch for sure. But yeah, I can't believe it's happening, and we deserve it.
Yeah, we do. The city has been honestly needing something like this for a long time. And I feel like as we keep growing, the demand for these kind of spaces are only going to get bigger. So I'm excited to see what happens with the public market. A summer opening sounds super fun. Can't wait to go.
One thing I saw that looked really cool was our buddy Lindsay Christians did a story for the Cap Times on all the public arts that's going to go in there. They're starting to finalize all the different things. And there's something about reading about that. They're just like, I'm really starting to be able to visualize what this is going to be like, that this big cavernous building is just going to be full of so much cool stuff and so many cool people. And they're not going to have franchises in there. It's local artists and restaurants. It just seems like a great space. Like this seems to be the way a lot of places are going. You think of like Middleton has a new food hall. These spaces were smaller vendors and people can just kind of come together, and it's just very exciting. And so I'm confident it's going to happen. I'm confident this summer we're going to be going and maybe doing a live broadcast or something from there. I don't know. It sounds really cool.
Oh, that's a good idea.
You're scheming, Rob. I think the theme of the year is community. Truly. This sounds so fluffy and whatnot, but I truly think it is.
It's the fluff that holds us together, the marshmallow root. We're in a happy, fluffy love bundle of marshmallows. Who knew I was going to take it there? It's kind of, just after the holidays. I'm thinking about marshmallows and hot chocolate. And another thing that I wanted to bring up that's opening or set to open in 2025, y'all, is the Center for Black Excellence and Culture. Oh my God. Last year, of course, they had their historic groundbreaking with much pomp and circumstance. And as of, last winter, construction was underway. They have got the cement poured in. So, it is also happening. And they're hoping to hit their goal to have a soft opening by November this year. So speaking of celebrations, y'all might have heard our recent episode last month highlighting Reverend Dr. Alex G., the founder of the center's podcast, Black Like Me. They hit their 10th season. There's a lot to celebrate. They had me on as a guest, so you might have heard that conversation. Dr. G's been at the helm of this center undertaking. He's been ushering in making this a reality with his team. I know they've been working really hard, and recent updates, they've certainly fundraised a ton. He reported over $29 million from over 1,200 funders. So there's a lot of community support here for the center, and they're still looking for more. In terms of the center, the plan is for it to be a 37,000 square foot, 3-story space. And it's charted to, quote, uplift Black joy, Black innovation, and Black wellness. got a chance to speak with Dr. G, over a year ago about the vision as they've been planning away. And it just sounds like it's really going to be a space for Black Madisonians to find wellness and a safe space to create and tell stories. Some of the things that they mentioned they're envisioning for the space, including having an area for farmers markets inside, art shows, a dedicated performance space, theater space, art gallery space for statewide and regional Black artists, and then a center for innovation for Black innovators who, like startup companies like Be It a Light company or a biotech company and like other possible like non-traditional business models. So just making a safe space. And I'm just stoked because we all know Dr. G has a lot of style. So I feel like this place is going to be stylish as heck too.
Oh yeah.
They do have a Black architect. And that was one of the parts of when we spoke with Dr. G. He's shared that they're really intentionally trying to build and design the space in the Black aesthetic. So I'm just super stoked to see what that looks like and what it can mean for Madison.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. I think this is going to be a huge community space. I think there is a lot going on over in that neighborhood and in that area, and just adding more spaces, again, for community gatherings, for things like farmers market, for vendors, for people to shop and to be amongst each other. It's exciting.
I love that they seem to be thinking really big and like putting all kinds of different ways for people to connect in there. And that's super cool.
Yeah. And for just to note, they do plan to still invite non-Black community members in for performances and to see the storytelling, but to have, it to be able to be Black-led storytelling, which obviously is less common in Madison and some
Absolutely.
of the other spaces. Yeah, so I'm excited to go. All these fun things to look forward to 2025. We've got so much more. Before we dive into more of the news stories we're watching out for, let's take a quick break.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Let's get political. We're changing gears.
It's all musical. I love this. I love this new turn in 2025. So yeah, I think after 2024, a lot of people were maybe burned out a little bit on politics in the election and are trying to maybe get recharged in 2025, but it just doesn't stop. And like on April 1st, which is less than 3 months from now, there's a big election in Wisconsin. And I saw one person say this election might actually directly affect more people than the presidential race or the governor's race, and that's the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race. Supreme Court Justice Ann Walsh Bradley, who is a liberal, is retiring, which puts the 4-3 ideological balance of the court at stake. For years and years, the conservatives had the majority on that court, and then in 2023, Janet Protasewicz flipped that balance, and it was 4-3. And the effects in just less than 2 years for Democrats have been palpable. Like the biggest one is they gave Democrats a big win by approving fair legislative maps, which led to big pickups in the state assembly. And in fact, I know they're hoping in 2026 they could actually even flip the assembly. And the Senate's also a lot closer. It wasn't that long ago that they were talking supermajorities in the Senate. And the court has big things on its docket. Like last week, we talked about a Dane County judge overturned Act 10, which eliminated collective bargaining for most public employees. That's something the court's going to decide. And there's also a suit about preserving abortion access in Wisconsin, whether that 150-year-old law applies anymore or not. There's a case involving the nonpartisan election administrator and her job. And so all these big issues affecting Wisconsin come down to this narrow margin on the 7-person court. There's Brad Schimmel is running. He's the conservative candidate in the race. He's a Trump-supporting circuit court judge from Waukesha County. If that name is familiar, he was Governor Scott Walker's attorney general from 2015 to 2019. And he's running against the liberal candidate who is Dane County Judge Susan Crawford. So, I mean, it's a clear ideological difference. There's a lot at stake. Both sides know it. So I would say enjoy this pause and lots of ads on your TV and lots of money being spent. It's going to ramp up very quickly, and it's going to be a very busy spring.
Oh, yeah. And to note, I mean, this is technically a nonpartisan race, but it's like, have we all kind of moved past that, right? I mean, like, Brad Schimmel has a clear agenda. Susan Crawford, as you mentioned, like, has a clear agenda. It's just, who are we fooling anymore? I don't know.
That's why the campaigns are so interesting to me, because they've got to kind of dance around that in some way and not say, Democrat or Republican. But it's pretty obvious what the effects of each judge are on politics in Wisconsin. And it seems to be becoming even more and more as so many things are taken to court. So it's a big race.
Yeah, I feel like so many more of these major issues, no matter where they're coming from the left or the right, they just end up at the Supreme Court. And that's why these elections are so important. And like you said, they will actually truly impact the lives of people in Wisconsin more so than even a Trump presidency.
Right. Like that Act 10, that's 200,000
Huge.
teachers and other public workers. And I think, as you guys talked about, Republicans are trying to slow walk that to the Supreme Court because they're waiting for April 1st to see if the conservatives take control of the court again. So that's an example of something that will be very tangible benefits for Wisconsinites.
And I mean, we just heard throughout the presidential campaign, Donald Trump saying, it's leave it to the states. Leave it to, it should be up to the states, up to the states. This is what they mean.
And this is the states. This is the states.
Yeah. They've got, and that's the stakes, folks.
The stakes are on the states. That's so real. That's so real.
Yeah, but then we also have Dane County news.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say, get even more locally, you talk about county politics. We have a big change in county politics going into 2025 here. We have a new Dane County executive for the first time in 13 years. Joe Parisi was Dane County executive until he retired last year. He really made his mark on county government. And now we have former state senator Melissa Agard taking over that role. In November, she beat Dana Pelleban by like a 23.1% margin. They were nice enough to both come on our podcast and talk about their visions. And so it'll be really interesting to see what Melissa Agard, does with the role. If she jumps right in or is sort of like building coalitions and stuff. I read that she's looking at environmental leadership, addiction and mental health, reforming the justice system, and economic development, which are sort of like the bread and butter county issues for the most part. No surprises there. But it's a big job, because Dane County, it's Madison, but it's also those communities more on the boundaries of the county, which the smaller ones, which aren't necessarily as liberal as Madison is, and a county executive has to kind of balance those different priorities. And I think she's already, being someone from Madison, I think one of the first things she's going to do is make an effort to work with some of those smaller communities, especially making sure that they get their fair share of funding from a state government, which hasn't often been that great at getting funding to local communities.
Yeah, I'm really curious if she can help move the needle on that end, right? Because she has spent the last decade plus as a state senator in District 16, which includes the Madison area. So she knows the ins and outs of state government, right? Can she get Dane County in front of those critical ears? Can she get us more funding? Because this is so much of what not only Madison, but other surrounding cities have complained about when it comes to shared revenue and getting cash from our state legislature, and why so many different cities went to referendum in 2024 to raise money.
Yeah. Yeah. She seems very well positioned, I think, for making those kind of relationships.
And as you said, it's a very big position. Dane County is the fastest growing county in the state.
That's right.
And so we'll be hopefully talking to her again soon as this year gets rolling. We got more stories to talk about. And before we dive into more, let's take a quick break. We're back and we're going even more local, hyper local. Haley, hit it.
Yes, and we're still talking about elections. So getting super, super local. Every single city council seat will be on the ballot in April. So mic drop on that one, y'all. If you weren't excited by the Supreme Court election, if you weren't excited by our new Dane County executive, get excited to vote for your city council representative. It is very exciting. So, of course, the news in itself is this April election, but There's also the start of a new system that will change our city council's elections process. So, if you guys recall, back in 2023, which seems like a decade ago,
It does. It really does.
I don't even know what year it is. Voters sounded off on a ballot measure that asked essentially if Madison City Council should run on staggered 2-year terms starting in 2025. And, well, we're here. It's 2025. Back in 2023, overwhelmingly, voters approved that measure by over 83%. So now's the time, right? Everyone is up for election, but alders for even-numbered districts are only running for 1-year terms in this election cycle, and alders for odd-numbered districts are running for a full 2-year term. And then in 2026, alders in even-numbered districts will be up for a 2-year election term, and so on and so forth. So even numbers get the short end of the straw this time around, but voters said yes to that back in 2023. So that's what we're moving forward with.
How did they decide that, whether it was even or odd?
That's a great question. Someone tell us. Yeah, that's a good question. But I don't know about y'all, but even before this year started, I have already started to see some local names getting a jump on their campaign. For example, over on the east side, District 6, which is currently represented by Alder Marsha Rummel, Davey Mayer, who has run for the seat before, is at it again. So he announced his bid for the seat back in December. So people are already gearing up and they are ready to go, talking about elections to watch. It is literally all of them. So it'll be exciting. Get informed. We are going to be talking to a lot of city council candidates this year is all I'm going to tell you guys right now. So I hope you're excited.
We're going to need a revolving door for the podcast studio, I think, to sort of keep track of all the traffic of guests coming in and out.
Truly.
Even numbers first.
Yeah.
That's right.
Even numbers first. We'll give them the better end of the stick this time. And in addition to all of the city council seats being on the ballot, Madisonians will also be voting for the City of Madison Municipal Judge and the Madison Metropolitan School District Board of Education, so school board seats 3, 4, and 5. So it is going to be a big election, y'all. There is no way around it. It's going to be exciting. I hope you guys like local politics.
Yes, all the local political junkies come out. The campaigners are going to need to get their walking shoes on because they're going to be hitting the community. So some of y'all might be getting knocks on your door to meet some of these folks. So I love it. I love it. Thank you to the people who actually run and then serve.
Yes.
Because, man, it's a lot of work. So thanks for holding up the world for us.
And especially on city council, right? Like these are people that truly make a difference in your neighborhood. So get familiar with your alder and, get to know them, get to know where they stand on the issues and how they can help you live a better life in Madison because they want to help. And that's what public service is all about. But speaking of public entities, one of the bigger stories that we're also going to be keeping an eye on this year has to do with the future of the universities of Wisconsin, formerly known as the UW system. So pretty much throughout the latter half of 2024, a legislative committee has been meeting to discuss this very question of what does the future of the UW system look like? And once again, to better understand this story, we have to take a step back. So the universities and the state legislature have been embroiled in budgetary battles for decades. This is nothing new. But this recently came to a head back in 2023 when lawmakers cut $32 million in state funding for the UW system over objections to diversity, equity, and inclusion programs on campuses, aka DEI. We're not going to unravel that whole spool of thread because it's a messy one. But the long story short is that the universities later recouped most of that $32 million in exchange for freezing the number of DEI positions on campuses. And UW-Madison specifically agreed to end a program that helped recruit and support people of color for university jobs. So a lot of concessions were made, a lot of discussions were had, and this kind of led to the bigger question of like, how do these universities work together with the state legislature so that they don't feel like their jobs, their money, their well-being is being held hostage by these budgetary conversations, right? So after all of this went down, a panel of lawmakers, university professors, and business leaders from around the state was assembled to study and put forward recommendations for how the system and the state can better work together at a time when a lot of the UW campuses are struggling. You know, we hear a lot of good news about UW-Madison, but it's kind of a bubble, right? Because most of the other UW campuses are really struggling with their recruitment numbers, with fundraising, and with all these issues at hand. So the committee's purpose, as defined by the legislature, is to, quote, examine demographic trends affecting the University of Wisconsin system and evaluate institutional infrastructure needs based on geographic access, workforce planning, and student demand for specific areas of study. The committee is also directed to review the administrative staff needs and governance structure of the UWS, aka the system, including the Board of Regents. And one of the big questions the group is examining is whether or not UW-Madison should be spun off from the rest of the system, which is kind of a huge question, right? And also would be a major, major change for the system. And during their October meeting, 13 members of that committee voted yes to that idea, and 5 members voted against it. To be clear, any change to the UW system structure, so like anything like spinning off UW-Madison, it would require legislative approval. And Governor Evers said back in November that he would veto any proposal to that extent if it came his way. And additionally, UW-Madison Chancellor Jennifer Mnookin and UW President Jay Rothman are opposed to the idea. They do not want UW to go off on its own. So with that said, this is now something that the legislature will be talking about in 2025, and it's something that we're going to be watching. This committee has a lot of thoughts, and they could be changing things up for our university system, and we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on it because what the heck, man?
Wisconsin idea. Hello.
Right.
How's that going to work?
They're like, I've got a Wisconsin idea for you.
It's so strange. Like, I just can't imagine a Wisconsin where the UW-Madison was separate from the other campuses. And the fact that like this would be the equivalent to like the rest of the country kicking California out, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Are you sure?
You might want to think twice about that one. So yeah, I'd have to read more about the rationale behind why they think that's a good idea. But the fact that the chancellor and the assistant president don't think so, and the governor don't think so, yeah, it's super interesting that the people are even considering this.
Yeah, it's wild. I think it's mostly because they want the system to focus mostly on like the issues that the majority of the campuses are facing. And like I said, UW-Madison is often an outlier, though that doesn't mean that they're not facing the same budgetary issues. You know, UW is just kind of the shining star when it comes to enrollment. So yeah, there's interesting arguments for, there's a lot of arguments against. It is a weird, weird story. So we're going to be talking about that one this year.
Yes.
Get ready.
Yeah.
Get ready. We're ready. I'm ready. Literally to talk about that right away. So, this is awesome. We've got so much to dig into this year, and I'm so excited to do it with y'all. Thank you for rounding up our news to watch with me this week. Haley Sperling, thank you so much.
Yay. Happy first Friday News Roundup of the year.
Yay! And Rob Thomas, thank you.
Happy 2025.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. We're produced by Adam Sage and Elizabeth Kama. Haley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Rob Thomas is our newsletter editor. You can always get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone you know who loves to stay up to date with local news. See you back here Monday morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take good care and Happy New Year.